State leaders across the nation discussed ways to get out of the red at the National Governors Association meeting in Washington. Rick Lazio wants to be New York's Republican nominee for governor. He is with us now. Sir, I've got one very basic question.
What is it, Stuart?
Are you going to be the Chris Christie of New York? And let me explain to our viewers who might not know Chris Christie. He's the new Republican governor in New Jersey. He has said, I will cut everything and anything to get my state's finances back into the balance. We will not raise taxes. You want to be the governor of New York. Will you say, prior to election, exactly the same thing for New York?
We will. Absolutely. We cannot afford to raise taxes. New York has 875,000 people unemployed right now. We've lost more jobs but all but two other states in the country. So we're losing population, we're losing jobs, and the way to get them back is to turn a corner on a high-tax, high-cost environment. There's the second worst business climate in America.
But you've got a huge deficit, and it's growing.
Right.
People will say to you, why not raise taxes just a little bit more for now to get things in balance and then do your cost-cutting when things have returned to normal?
Because the problem, Stuart, is not that we have insufficient revenue. The problem is that we have excessive, wildly out-of-control spending. That's exactly what Chris Christie has inherited in New Jersey. He didn't create this deep fiscal hole. He's just promising the people of New Jersey that he will dig out from under it and put the state back on a responsible fiscal course where investors can feel comfortable that they can invest in New Jersey, as I want them to be able to invest in New York to expand and create jobs. Everybody says they love jobs, but you've got to also help support the job creators.
Okay.
But New York has one of the highest, if not the highest, state tax in many, based on many calculations, when you pull in New York City as well. So you already have really high state tax, and you have people leaving the state now because of this. So how do you keep those people here? How do you prevent them from the continuous exodus? Because we saw it happen in Maryland. They lost their millionaires, and then they lost their tax revenue.
That's exactly right. There's two things that we're doing right away that I've said I'm going to do. First of all, on property taxes, New York State has one of the highest property taxes in the entire country. As a matter of fact, as a measure of the value of homes, it's the highest. All 10 counties of the highest in America are in New York State. What I proposed is a 2.5% cap on property taxes so that wherever you are, no matter who you are, your property taxes can never be higher than 2.5% of the value of your home. Second, I propose getting business taxes down. We need to drive business taxes down to demonstrate that New York kind of gets it, that businesses are going to be encouraged to come back to New York if they've left. The businesses that are here in New York are going to be encouraged to invest in New York and expand in New York and create jobs in New York. We've got to play offense on jobs.
But you've got to play offense on the unions, lavish pensions.
Yes.
You've got to do something about that. And I put it to you, sir, the New York Times will never let you.
That's exactly right. New York Times is on the other side of this. I mean, this is the status quo. Right now, interest groups are in control of most state capitals, and I would argue Washington as well. Albany, New York's capital, is absolutely under the control of special interest groups. Unless the public is engaged and sends a mandate and says we cannot continue to live beyond our means, we can't bankrupt this state, we can't tarnish the future for the next generation, for our children and our children's children, we are not going to have what we need. So we need to be able to take on these interest groups.
Okay, New York State, their non-pension right now obligations for retiree health is the obligation is $56.3 billion. Unfunded part, $56.3 billion.
Right.
How do you attack that? Because what I see happening across this country is an economic civil war between public workers and private workers.
Yes.
Public workers, 90% of them have all these health benefits. Only 20% of private workers have it, and yet they're going to be taxed to pay the public workers stuff.
Congressman,
how can it
vote?
Keep going?
The public workers that you're talking about, Charles, they vote in very large numbers. They're not going to vote for you if you say you're going to take them on.
I think this is a matter of sort of patriotism. I think you've got to appeal to people that if they want to hand over a state that's got a darker future, fewer jobs, spending out of control, a state that's bankrupt, you want to hand it over to your children and your grandchildren. You're going to feel good about yourself when you do that. We have to get our spending under control. The New York State pension costs are going to triple over the next 3 years, from $1 to about $3 billion. A lot of those costs, a year. And a lot of those costs are going to be shifted to local governments, and they don't even have much control over that. So we have to have a system, like Chris Christie's talking about, ending multiple pensions, putting a absolute cap on the amount of money you can pay out for a public pension. I'm not sure it's very fair.
Stop gaming the system, right? You know, your last year of work, you work double overtime, and you just punch in all that.
Yes.
It's written into, is it the state's constitution?
Yes,
they must honor those contractual
You can only do it prospectively. So we've got to create what's called a new tier for future employees.
But then
on the
that
way
means
forward.
you cannot control what you've got to pay out. You can't.
You've got to begin to set a better course for the future. I just want to make sure when I'm governor, we turn this state around and we hand off to my successor a better, stronger, more independent New York than we have right now. We can't fix what's already happened in the past. Unfortunately, I'd love to be able to do that without going back to the Constitution and rewriting the Constitution, which, by the way, I'm for a constitutional convention to be able to review these things. Yes. But we absolutely can fix the ship going forward in terms of new state employees.
Your opponent on the Democrat side is either current Governor Patterson,
correct,
or Attorney General Cuomo.
Right.
One of the two.
Right.
Almost certain.
Right, yes.
Probably Mr. Cuomo. Whose side is the New York Times on?
The New York Times is absolutely in the tank for Andrew Cuomo. I mean, poor David Patterson. I'm sure he's not going to want me to say poor David Patterson, but the guy is announced this past weekend for governor two articles, front page articles, both nonsense articles in the New York Times. The day before his announcement, they write an article where he talks about he is increasingly remote and disengaged. And then they criticize him for all kinds of nonsense things, going out too much, but then being isolated and not going out enough. It seems to me the only person that benefits from an article like that, a front page article like that, is Andrew Cuomo. And there's no doubt about it in my mind that the New York Times is going to be fighting tooth and nail to protect all the special interests, all the continued spending, everything that's bankrupting New York State right now. The people of New York have got to get engaged, get involved, and send a message. The big media doesn't control things. Special interests don't control things. The people control things.
I just want to say, you are on this program, even though you want to be governor of one state, New York.
Yes.
We're a national network. We go out all across the country and some countries abroad as well. We put you on this program because 30 to 40 other states face massive deficits.
Exactly.
Some are just simply overwhelming.
$350 billion.
And they're going to have to make exactly the same choices that New York's going to be making very soon.
Absolutely. But few states are as economically or politically important, I would argue, as California and New York. And both states right now are fiscal train wrecks. We need to turn that around, change things, take on the interest groups, and restore New York's pride back.
Come back and tell us again. Rick Lazio, thank you very much indeed. Question for you, ladies and gentlemen. What is the laziest country in the world?